Wait, Natalie, are you about to have an emotional meltdown?
I'm already crying.
Are you ready to flex your feelings?
How about do an emotional push-up, not on your knees?
I think I just pulled an emotional hamstring.
In this episode, Ross and I look each other dead in the eye and give feedback on things that actually bother us about each other.
We're bringing in an actual real-life doctor, Dr. Emily Anhalt.
Thank God we can finally have a real professional in the building.
We're diving into emotional fitness and how it can make you a better person and professional.
Demoted.
What is up, Moterheads? Welcome back to Demoted. We got a guest today.
If you're seeing like tears in our eyes, we are ready to flex our feelings.
We're gonna be flexing so freaking hard, and you'll see exactly how small our emotional muscles are. We spend a lot of time in the gym at Barry's, at other various classes, but
you're
not
gonna
so
leave this
much
episode thinking, wow, those two people would be great candidates for therapy.
Yes. Despite the fact I already go to therapy, I could always use a little bit more.
Always a little bit more. We might have to up to double days.
Our guest is amazing.
We just left that conversation feeling honestly changed. Feeling like, one, we want all of our episodes to be something like this.
Yeah, this is a fucking cool episode. And if you guys remember the Simone Stolzoff episode, this guest is a recommendation from him.
So who is Dr. Emily Anhalt?
She is a clinical psychologist. She is an author, speaker, and emotional fitness expert.
We talk a lot about emotional fitness today. What is the difference between physical fitness and why don't we take the time to invest in our emotional fitness?
Exactly. She works with individuals and organizations to proactively enhance their mental well-being.
She works with a lot of entrepreneurs, highly successful people. We kind of dig into this of what is that type of person.
Yeah,
Are they all crazy?
She gets into this intersection of psychology and business, which I think is super relevant for all the folks here on this pod, the Moterheads.
Definitely. And she's the author of the book, Flex Your Feelings, which provides a practical guide to developing emotional fitness through actionable exercises and insights.
She's also rocking an absolutely awesome necklace that just says feelings on it.
It does.
So let's welcome to the pod, Dr. Emily Anhalt.
Dr. Emily, which I just found out I can call you. We're so happy to have you. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling really good today. It's great to be here.
Good. Welcome to our tiny little studio. We're not in the beanbags.
We're not in the beanbags.
Which is a little more comfortable.
For you especially.
For you. We needed,
Appreciate that.
We tried to stick people between the beanbags and it didn't really work for us. So
no. It was, but we want to dive in here. I guess like it says here, you're a doctor. Crazy. We claim to be doctors all the time. We give medical advice on this podcast. So thank God we actually have a real doctor in the house. If Ross collapsed due to dehydration and old age right now, would you be able to save his life, or are you more equipped to handle maybe one of my emotional meltdowns?
Yeah, well, my doctorate is in clinical psychology. So if one of you collapses from anxiety or low self-esteem, I've got you.
Okay.
That's huge.
That's we have a lot of that
low
here.
Low self-esteem. Now, okay. I'm ready.
Wow.
I'm ready.
I can be saved. Can you tell us more about your doctorate, what you studied, what you focused on?
Yeah, I started my work doing traditional one-on-one therapy with mostly ambitious, high-performing entrepreneurs who were outwardly successful but still overwhelmed emotionally.
Yeah.
And I noticed that they would often wait until things were really bad to get support. But to me, that's like waiting till you have heart disease to do cardio. So I wanted to figure out what a more proactive approach to mental health looks like. How can we treat our mental health more like going to the gym and less like going to the doctor?
Yep.
So a number of years ago, I did a big research study where I interviewed 100 psychologists and entrepreneurs. And I asked them, how would you know if you were sitting across the table from an emotionally healthy leader or an emotionally healthy person? What does that look like? What does that feel like? What do they do? What do they not do? And out of this research came what I call the 7 traits of emotional fitness. These are the 7 things that emotionally healthy people are working on all the time. And my book, Flex Your Feelings, is a data-driven how-to guide for strengthening those 7 traits.
Okay. And we're going to get into those traits. We're going to get into some actionable, we call them Moterheads. Those are our fans.
Right.
Nothing to do with motors, but it's the best we could come up with.
Yeah.
And they love their stats. They love their data. But first, I want to start back at the beginning. How did you find yourself in this career? Were you dealing with some of these things on your own? Was this just, you always knew you wanted to be clinical psychologist? Yeah. Like I grew up wanting to be a salesperson. Like I just knew I wanted to sell stuff to people who they didn't need. Yeah. I just account executive, please, God. So take us back to the beginning of your journey.
Yeah, therapists aren't therapists by accident. We all have some stuff that we're trying to figure out. I was a raging ADHD kid in an environment that didn't support my mind working differently. So I figured out kind of young that I would need to learn how to do things my own way and kind of learn how to play the game instead of just following the rules. And I was lucky to have a psychologically minded family. So therapy was just not as stigmatized for me, I think. And then at some point, I realized that when you know a lot about psychology, you know a little about everything, because the world is spoken in the language of relationships, and psychology is the study of relationships, the ones you have to yourself and to other people. So I went to University of Michigan, and I had a professor there who was part of the original Harvard LSD studies. Like, he took acid in a white room and then they studied him, kind of thing.
No way.
And he was just brilliant.
Do you guys do subjects or anything for that? Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't know how you volunteer for that, but I love it. He was just brilliant, and he just really opened my eyes to how powerful psychology could be. So I got into it from there, and then I grew up in Silicon Valley, and I went to grad school here too. And so most of the people I worked with were entrepreneurs. And I realized there's this kind of psychological thread that runs through the people who decide to do these big things. And it also occurred to me that the people who are running the big companies, they're deciding a lot about our society.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not all the most mentally healthy. So I wanted to see if I could support them in leveling up emotionally.
You realized how good of a business decision this would be if you worked in the Silicon Valley, and how much help people like us need.
A never-ending supply.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
You talk a lot about emotional fitness. I talk about physical fitness on my channel because I pretend to be a Pilates instructor, but that's kind of a non sequitur. What is emotional fitness?
Yeah. So, emotional fitness is the ongoing proactive practice of strengthening your mental and emotional health. So if physical fitness is training your body to be adaptable and resilient, get stronger now and prevent disease later, emotional fitness is similar. You are strengthening your emotional health so that you can handle the things that life throws at you with more ease and resilience.
I think a lot of people, myself included, like, I was a psych major. Actually, I was an econ major, and then I failed my first two finals, and I was like, I'm going to do something more my speed, a little more applicable to the world. But I think, as a athlete, we were always taught about mental strength and mental fortitude. Does this fall under the same thing? Like, do you differentiate between emotional versus like mental?
Yeah, I think about emotional fitness as a practice that gives you better mental health, the way physical fitness is a practice that makes you healthier.
Got it.
So to me, emotional versus mental. Mental is maybe sort of processes in your mind, and your emotions are the compass that points to the things you should be paying attention to. And so I think your emotional fitness helps you be sort of more grounded and more intentional with the way that you're living your life.
So what would an emotional push-up be, so to speak?
Yeah, right. So I wanted to figure that out. Like, how do you actually work on your mental health in this way? So if you think about a physical push-up, it's this little physical exertion, and it's a little uncomfortable. And if you just do one, you're not going to get much stronger. But if you do them every day, not only will you be able to do more push-ups, you'll also be able to do other things like carry heavy groceries, and you'll probably live longer because you're able to fight disease. So
Listen up. Natalie does anything she can to live longer.
I do. That's correct.
Anything.
That's correct. I'm
Chemical or otherwise.
I'm bummed now that one push-up isn't that much, because that's my max. But
Well, you do the knee push-ups.
I'm always on my knee. It's so bad. It's horrible.
That's good to know.
That's fine.
So an emotional push-up is similar. It's anything that puts you a little outside of your emotional comfort zone so you can grow. And what's outside of my comfort zone might not be outside of yours. So part of this is figuring out what makes me a little uncomfortable and how can I do it anyway. So if you want, I can lead you through one right now.
Oh,
Yes.
I would love to do an emotional push-up.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's all get emotionally swole together. So one of the things that makes a lot of people
shaking
uncomfortable.
already.
Oh my God. Oh, that was so, okay.
We said low self-esteem earlier, and I've honestly been triggered ever since. We're social media personalities. We have none.
I'm going to go a little easy on you then. I
Thank you.
won't bust
Thank
out
you.
the
Thank
guns.
God.
One of the things that makes a lot of people uncomfortable is asking for feedback.
Oh,
And we should be asking
That's
for
vulnerable.
feedback.
yeah,
Most people won't tell you what they really think about you until you ask.
yeah.
So anyone who's listening right now, if you want to do an emotional push-up, I'm going to have you two do it with each other. But you can pull out your phone and pull up a text message and send it to someone who you interact with regularly, whose perspective you respect. And you'll say something like, hey, I'm working on asking for feedback, and I'd be curious if you'd be willing to share what is one thing I'm doing well as a friend, a sibling, a boss, and what is one thing I could do 10% better? And I like the framing 10% better because it's a lower lift.
Right.
So I'd be curious for you two, would you be willing to share what's one thing you're each doing well as a co-host, and what's one thing you could do 10% better?
Oh, I should unclench my hands. I was gonna just throw down. We were just gonna wrestle.
10% better.
Submit.
What? Okay.
Submit.
I need to think.
I think you could 10% better show up on time.
I completely
and help me set up a little bit more.
I think that would make our relationship better.
Well, and
you wouldn't resent me as much.
I don't resent. It leaves me wanting more, which means I just like need more of you. I become needy.
I know. I get that.
You know,
you don't like when I show up 5 minutes before the interview
and then say, guys, she's about to be here.
And you're like, I know.
Shit.
I will work on that. It was a big weekend.
It was a huge weekend. So this weekend you're excused, but the last 6,
the
not
last
as much.
7.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good feedback. What am I doing well?
I mean, pretty much everything else. I mean, you're engaged, you're researched, you're thoughtful, you're funny. You make me better on the pod.
You're so sweet.
You give me, like we spend most of our time laughing together. So it's like, I don't have that with everyone.
Yeah.
Right? That's special.
Okay. So, what you could do 10% better on is not caring what other people think.
Yeah.
I think we always say we won't. And I think I've gotten to a point where I care a little bit less.
You're way better at this than me.
Yeah, but I think if you let that go, you would be more successful in your career even.
Yeah.
But
True.
it's just crippling for your mind more than anything.
Yeah.
No one else sees it except the people closest to you.
Yeah, it's true.
And one thing you're doing so well at that I could have never expected is being a dad. You are so calm. You are managing working. Your relationship with Becca is still so strong, and you haven't let this impact your life in any negative way. It's only a value add, which I feel like we always joked about, but it really truly is, and it's beautiful to see.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun to watch.
Whoa, you're still here.
Oh my God, you're still here.
Oh shit.
Wait, what just happened?
Do you feel emotionally ripped yet?
Yeah. I mean, I'm so sweaty. I'm so sweaty.
I'm completely
I can feel my emotional
sweating.
muscle fibers breaking down, though. You're breaking down to build them up.
I'm crying
Right?
inside.
So I'm saying.
Yeah.
I send this text to someone in my life once a month.
Okay.
And I really get a lot of very helpful feedback. It's really nice to know what I might not be seeing about myself.
How would you, as our therapist, view that interaction?
Oh, well,
Healthy?
you obviously talk a lot already. It doesn't sound like any of that feedback was a surprise to either of you, which is really sweet.
We talk a lot.
For
sure.
Perhaps too much.
Perhaps too much.
Text messages, which ones, from which day, which hour?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so maybe you would try it with someone in your life who you don't have as communicative of a relationship with, and it can become that over time, which is what's cool about this work.
I learned this in a reputation, personal brand workshop at Stanford. And basically what we had to do was send somewhat of this question. It was to 30 or 40 people, acquaintances, friends, family, whoever you think would fill it out. And it was rate Ross's emotional intelligence 1 to 10. Rate Ross's leadership ability. What could Ross do better? What holds him back? And talk about it is anonymous, but talk about humbling.
Yeah.
What was something you saw from that maybe surprised you?
Well, a lot of it was my first impression was terrible. It was 39 of 40 said their opinion of me changed after the first impression.
Yeah.
So, what do people think of you? What do they assume you are versus how are you once you get to know them? I was I really need to work on that. I think my warmth is, and I know my warmth is not, I'm not a super warm person.
Are you a slow cooker, not a microwave?
You would, yeah. Some would say.
Yeah.
Some would say, it was my superpower is humor, but I often use that to prevent people from getting to know me a little bit deeper. It kind of pushes people out, even though it's entertaining, right? So I do think there's enormous power in the feedback.
For sure.
Loop. So this reminded me of that exercise. I'm oh my God.
Oh God, I'm reliving it.
Yeah, I'm reliving it.
Well, research shows that 95% of people would say that they're self-aware, but only 10 to 15% of people actually are.
Right.
And that's because we don't know what we don't know. We know everything we do know about ourselves, which feels like a lot. And we see things in other people that they clearly don't see in themselves. So in comparison, it seems like we're so self-aware, but we don't see all the things that we don't know. And so feedback is a really nice way to close that gap because you start to see the things that other people can help you get new perspective on.
Right.
Self-awareness is tough. I think we actually because we use humor almost as a defense mechanism, we'll always try to say what people are thinking about us before they can say it.
Right.
We can never be hurt because we'll say
we already
the
hurt
joke.
ourselves.
Yeah. We already hurt ourselves. And so I don't know if that's self-aware, and maybe we could do more work on that. I know showing up late is annoying. And then I'll say like, hey guys, sorry, oh, we're working. Was I late? Like whatever. I'll take the joke,
situation.
diffuse before it can happen. But I don't know. Would you call that self-aware?
Yeah, self-awareness is just a first step. It's hard to change something before you know it exists, but just because you know it exists doesn't mean that it's so easy to change it. If it were easy to change, we all would have changed a long time ago.
Right. I was going to say self-awareness to me, like I'm going to be in that group of people who thinks they're very self-aware, but to the point of it's crippling.
Yeah.
Because you're just like aware of all the things that other people are thinking. You put yourself in all those people's shoes. Like, and you're just like, well, how do I address all of this at once? Like
all million of them who look at us
guess
every
I
day,
won't do
actually.
it then. Guess I'll just do nothing then.
Yeah, ignorance can be bliss for sure. But in the long run, I find, first you're aware of it, then you can change it, and then you benefit from it.
So what are the 7 traits?
Right. So these 7 traits of emotional fitness, I'll go through each of them. So the first is mindfulness, which I define as becoming more comfortable being uncomfortable. The second is curiosity, which is pursuing growth over defensiveness, having a learning mindset. The third is self-awareness, which is understanding your own triggers and biases and strengths and struggles. The fourth is resilience, which I say is bouncing forward through setbacks and failures. The fifth is empathy, so understanding and feeling others' emotions. The sixth is communication, being able to put words to your needs and boundaries and expectations. And the seventh is playfulness, being a yes and a person, creating space for connection and creativity.
I always say one of my key phrases, let's stay playful together. Like if something gets a little tense, I'm like, guys, let's stay playful together.
Natalie, it's a funeral.
No, actually,
Please.
like I'm always trying to stay playful.
This is a tragedy.
Why is
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
Yeah, exactly.
This is Wendy's. Exactly. Why is playfulness so important for adults?
Yeah, we really undervalue it. I think play has so many incredible benefits. They've shown that it increases creativity and spontaneity. I read a study once that showed that people who play regularly live longer by a significant number of years than people who don't play regularly.
How do you define play? Just so I know.
So I define play as being a yes and person and creating a space where people can be creative and focusing a little less on an end goal and more on a process, removing constraints and thinking big. So when I ask people the last time they played, they'll often say a sports game or a video game, and those are great. But I really think about it more in that improv way, that when someone comes to you with an idea, you meet them in their idea, you expand on that idea, and together you get somewhere that neither of you could have gotten alone. So brainstorming is a type of play, or taking a joke too far with a friend.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't hear her say poo-poo pee-pee jokes in there. It's playful. So I'm not sure if we're doing it right.
We always are playing then, if that's the case.
You are always playing.
We can't stop playing.
Stop playing.
And people only play in spaces where they feel safe. So if your work environment is not playful, it probably means there are things to think about. And sometimes being more playful is as simple as just starting your meetings with an icebreaker question or game.
Oh, that stresses people out.
Or instead of poking holes in someone's idea, saying yes and seeing where you get.
Well, I think that's a great segue to this next question, because a lot of our listeners deal with burnout or work-related stress. And are there any sort of mechanisms or techniques they can do to either identify it or get in front of it before it becomes a debilitating thing?
Yeah, burnout is so much easier to prevent than it is to fix. I think about it sort of like putting gas in your car. You wouldn't ever wait till you were completely out of gas, at least not intentionally, to figure out how you're going to refuel. Right. It's so much more work. Now you're on the side of the road. You have to call AAA. It's a whole thing. But people tend to wait until they're totally running on fumes to rest. Yep. And instead, we should be getting ahead of it. So I have a 3-step process for preventing burnout. And maybe we can do it together, actually. Ooh. So the first step is...
I'm already burnt out, though.
It's too late for you.
You lost me. I'm on the side of the road. I'm calling AAA. I'm out of gas. I'm hitchhiking. Yeah. We're gone.
Big scary man's let me in his truck. I'm in.
Okay, let's try it and see where we get.
Yeah, let's try it.
So the first step is to identify what are your early warning signs of burnout. How do you know that burnout is coming? So do you lose your appetite? Do you not sleep as well? Do you complain more?
Is your favorite place face down on the ground?
Exactly.
I love that spot.
In corpse position?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
So what would that be for you too? How do you know that you're starting to get really tired?
I get real apathetic. Like I stop caring.
Yeah.
I'm just like, everything's just kind of whatever.
Yeah.
Like I'll do it, but like there's none of the playfulness is gone.
That's so true for you.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I become just very high strung. I lose my I lose my kind edge, I think, a little more. I think I become
sharper around the edges.
Yeah.
Now that we've identified those, step 2 is recruit support, keeping an eye out for them. So clearly the two of you already sort of know this about each other, but you almost give each other permission to say, hey, you've seemed a little apathetic lately, or, you've been a little sharp around the edges. Just wanted to remind you that we had this conversation. You might ask your partner at home or your colleagues to alert you if they see these things happening, because it can be hard to see them in ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the third step is you figure out what are the things that refuel your tank. What makes you feel rested? Is it time in nature? Is it time alone or time with friends? Yep. How do you feel better? And as soon as someone tells you, hey, I'm seeing this sign, you immediately put one of those restful practices into place. Yep. You don't wait until you're really struggling.
I love that. It feels hard, especially with like business leaders and people who have successful careers and are grinding, and with just the culture of work in the US being like grind, never stop, work your way to the top. It feels hard to make time for these things. It feels hard to take an hour to do therapy for a week for me. Like, it's crazy. And it's an hour of time anyone can make, but like, how do you prioritize these things? How do you like make the time for it? How can you be playful at work when you're working your investment banking job and no one wants to even like look at you, let alone play with you?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I totally know what you're saying. And that's the number one thing I hear is people say, yeah, I believe in the importance of this, but I don't really have the time. But our time tends to shrink and expand in relation to our priorities. When something's important, we will find time for it. And what we forget is that you are actually saving so much time in the long run by investing in this now. An athlete would never say, you know what, I don't really have time to eat healthy. I'm just going to get fast food, because that's really going to screw them over when they're trying to be the best athlete in the world. And these days, most of us use our mind for our success. So investing some time in these traits is actually saving you a ton of time in the long run.
Yeah, I do therapy. I have an executive coach, and I do those, but I still deal with it, and I view it very much like going to the gym. I got to go to the gym or I'm unhappy. I, got to do these, hour meetings each week, but I still sometimes find myself in the depths, so to speak. And I guess my mindset will shift to, even when I go to therapy or I meet with my coach, I'm like, doesn't matter, and I find that momentum for me is so important. Like if I feel like I'm just taking L's over and over again, it is so hard for me to get out of that. Like, the only way is to have a win somewhere, and I'm just like desperately searching for wins. I feel like that is a problematic way. I think high performers, like, winning is good, losing is bad, right? And it's that simple. You're either winning or you're losing. And so I'm curious just your thoughts on that. I know it's a problematic mindset, but that's just something I tend to feel. It's like when the momentum's going well, I'm often like, okay, the bad's coming and it's coming. I try to stay ahead of it. Like, not that I'm trying to manifest bad, but then I'm just like, be ready, because you can't win all the time.
Yeah.
But then those losses happen, and the little things feel even worse, and you just sort of spiral.
Yeah.
I
mean, humaning is hard.
Is that what that is?
I don't think any of us.
Why am I not a winning robot?
But you're also kind of describing something we all struggle with, which is a real black or white mindset.
Yeah.
One of the ways I think about play, I talk about this in the book, is sometimes being playful just means leaning into the gray a little bit, and it being okay that something is not all or nothing. And, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about this, but our strengths very quickly become our weaknesses. The idea that you are pressing toward wins all the time has probably gotten you to some really cool places, but those things can turn on us really quickly if we're not keeping an eye on them. And, I think a lot of emotional fitness is really just about figuring out where we are on extreme parts of different spectrums and gently coaxing ourselves toward the middle.
We talk a lot about career changes, pivots, quitting your job. What emotional preparedness kind of tactics or techniques should people do when going into this change or this transition?
Have either of you two ever had a friend or friend
Nope.
who
a friend
who was in a really unhealthy relationship, and then they finally get out of that relationship only to find themselves having the exact same issues in the next relationship?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Okay. A lot of us have been there. Yep. And the reason that happens is something called repetition compulsion. We tend to repeat our patterns until we understand them. So my advice for people thinking about leaving their job is, before you do, get really honest with yourself about what you're hoping will be different in the next one and what you could potentially change where you already are. Do you really feel overworked, and are the expectations unrealistic, or do you just need to have more practice asserting your boundaries? Are your coworkers really the problem, or do you need to work on your communication? You know, this kind of process of understanding what role we're playing in our frustrations is not about self-blame. It's about realizing we have a lot of agency in our lives, and the more responsibility we take for things, the better they will go in general. And that's a hard process, so I recommend, therapy, talk to a mentor before you make any big life transition.
So accountability. Just like first step, take accountability.
Totally.
Yeah.
Kind of own your shit.
Own your shit.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of our relationships, we say, I'll take care of you if you take care of me. And instead, I think we should be saying, I'll take care of me for you if you'll take care of you for me. And as soon as we start doing that, all of our relationships and all of our choices will improve.
That's so true.
Soundbite, clip it.
Clip it.
Clip it.
Clip it.
So you specialize in psychology of the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
What makes tech founders, entrepreneurs different? Is there something, are they as crazy as we like to believe they are? Like what is their major difference that you notice versus someone else?
Sure. I will say working with entrepreneurs is some of the more intense work that I do. And
Sociopaths.
There's some of that for sure, but you almost have to be,
Yeah.
You are taking on so much risk. You are building something that doesn't exist yet. You almost have to be a little narcissistic to say, this isn't a thing and it should be, and I'm the only person who can really do it.
Sure.
And so that intensity can be helpful, but it also can be problematic. So that keeps my life interesting. But there are all kinds of psychological threads that run through people like this. They often have something to prove. They are often better at delaying gratification for some bigger payout.
Yeah.
They want to be their own boss. They have something I call the narcissism imposter syndrome cocktail. So narcissism, but also imposter syndrome at the same time.
Gosh,
God,
dangerous.
yeah.
Dangerous combo.
But, that's what makes these crazy things possible.
A little delulu.
A
I was
little
going to
bit.
say, do they all have a little delusional confidence?
You have to, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
I think it's similar to like professional athletes. They know they all believe they're the best player, but not everyone's LeBron James,
Totally.
but they're never going to reach their potential if they don't truly believe somewhere deep down they are the best.
Absolutely. And they're willing to sacrifice a lot, including sometimes their future health for this goal. And similarly, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are borrowing from their mental health to make crazy things happen. I heard a quote once that said, entrepreneurs are people who will work for 10 years like no one else will, so they can live the rest of their life like no one else can.
Yeah,
Love
interesting. Do you feel like
Feel that.
I do feel like there's in Silicon Valley like this almost wellness longevity push in entrepreneurs that maybe 15 years ago wasn't the case, where now they're like, oh, I need to do my IV drips and meditate. And like, do you feel like
They're
now
biohacking.
that wave is that's changed and entrepreneurs are looking to someone like you for help more than they would 10, 15 years ago?
It feels like that's happening more now. My co-founder says burnout is the workplace injury of the 21st century. Ooh. I think people are realizing that if they do not take care of their mental health, they will explode in a pile of flames. And, so yeah, it's nice to see. I think the pandemic made it clear that no one can fully avoid really tough things happening. So we should probably be prepared.
Do you think some of that has to do with the enormous desire to perform? But like it's not totally, I need to work on me. It's more, I need my competitive advantage. And this is therefore the way to do it versus truly, I don't know, intrinsic motivation of I should better myself versus, the competitive spirit of I got to be a high performer. This is necessary to perform highly. And it's almost not fake, but contrived in some sort of way.
Well, and does where that motivation comes from, is that important?
It doesn't matter.
I would say there's probably a yes and in there, that there are some people who just have a giant chip on their shoulder and the only reason they're trying to succeed is to prove something. And there are other people who really want to make a particular kind of change in the world, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. And I don't think I'd privilege one or the other. Either way, people are making incredible change. But I do think that success is an incredible motivator. And, part of the reason I started using the term emotional fitness is that it resonated with people who want to succeed. And if that's the way to meet them where they are, I'm here for it.
What are leadership traits that are often viewed as strengths that can maybe become weaknesses?
Yeah, I mean, really anything that helps you succeed can become a liability. Confidence can become arrogance. Empathy can become people-pleasing. Vision can become tunnel vision. The idea with emotional fitness is you keep an eye on that inflection point. When does something go from being a strength to a thing that's getting in your way? And if you're paying attention to that, you will catch it a lot more of the time than if you just assume that what got you here will get you there.
Is that the same for parenting?
Yeah, I think I compare parents and leaders a lot, actually. You know, there is this way in which you are creating this ethos and people are looking to you about how they should show up and act. I think similarly in parenting, you know, a really attentive parent can become a helicopter parent, or the parent who has high standards for their kids and wants them to reach their potential can become the perfectionist parent who makes kids feel like they're not good enough, you know. It's very true. But one thing that I say often is the perfect parent does not prepare their child for an imperfect world. Meaning the parent who can make mistakes and own those mistakes and model how to grow from them is probably doing their children a bigger service than the one that never makes any mistakes. And the same is true with leaders.
Wait, parents can apologize and own up to being wrong?
I know. What's that like?
Wait, what do you mean? I've never seen that.
It's a myth.
That's a myth. You mentioned your co-founder and you have a mental health startup.
COA, yeah.
Can you tell us about that? Tell us the story there.
For sure. So COA is a gym for mental health. We have therapist-led emotional fitness classes that are proactive and not prescriptive. And it's a place where you can work on these 7 traits with a licensed therapist as a coach.
And is it one-on-one or it's group classes?
It's group classes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How do you maintain like confidentiality in a space like that with higher performers who, I don't know, might be working at competitive companies or I don't know, just like what have you seen with that?
You really can't guarantee it the same way as one-on-one therapy, obviously, but we do at the beginning of every class make sure people understand that it should be a confidential space and you shouldn't be sharing anyone else's shares. And people are pretty good about it because, you know, they themselves are showing up vulnerably.
Is it virtual?
It's virtual, yeah. We had a brick and mortar space all ready to go and COVID hit, so we pivoted.
No way.
That'll do it. That'll do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
One of the things that I struggle with, and people will, you know, ask me about whether they should change a job or do X or Y. And my advice is always like, try to, and you can tell me if this is wrong or how to do it, but are you uncomfortable in is it your gut telling you this is the wrong choice, or is it that you're uncomfortable and this is like a growth moment, and differentiating between the two, right? If your gut is saying this is a bad move, and my example would be, I was going to change jobs, title change, more money, different company, but somewhere in my gut, I was like, this is the wrong move. But everything on paper, practically in my mind was like, this makes a ton of sense. And I was like, am I scared because it's growth, or am I scared because my gut believes this is wrong and this is wrong? And so differentiating between the gut telling you it's wrong versus I'm uncomfortable, therefore averse to it. And that's something I think is really hard to differentiate, but I'm curious your thoughts on that idea.
Yeah, it is hard. I've definitely been on record saying that I think always trust your gut is bad advice. And that's because our gut is only as wise as our past. Our gut instinct is always trying to keep us safe, and it's often formed around trauma instead of truth. So for example, if you were bitten by a dog as a kid, your gut instinct around all dogs might be that they're dangerous.
Sure.
And they're not all dangerous. So in my mind, you should listen to your gut for sure, but you should trust it, but verify.
Right.
So in your case, listen to your gut and asking, is this something that is pointing me in the direction I actually want to go? Or is this trying to keep me safe from something that I actually think I should take on?
Yeah. Okay. That's
what
good.
if I'm
I
a
like
witch, though? What if I'm a witch?
I'm a literal witch.
I'm a literal witch, and
Hear me out. What if
and
I'm
I've
a witch?
also never been wrong. Like, what if I'm a witch who's never been wrong? That's a different case, but that's just me.
I think you
There's
should
that
have a
cocktail of
t-shirt that
narcissism.
says, what if I'm a witch that's never been wrong?
What if I'm a witch? Like, I don't know. That just depends.
You might be. You might be.
Okay, we want to transition into some rapid fire questions.
Okay, ready.
What is the quick pitch for someone who's never been to therapy? And can I admit something? Actually, I don't know if I've ever actually been to therapy. I've been to like a coaching session, but I have not done therapy.
All right, my pitch would be, no world-class athlete has ever reached their full potential without a coach. I don't know why we expect ourselves to reach our full potential without support. Therapy is for anyone who wants to level up in life. If you have ever felt like life is happening to you, therapy is for you. It is a space where you will learn more about yourself so that you can change unhealthy patterns, you can deepen your relationships, you can understand who you are in the world, and ultimately the ROI on therapy is your whole life feeling better. And it might not always feel like that while you're in it, but I know for me, after years of therapy, I woke up one day and I looked around and I thought, holy shit, everything in my life is better.
Really?
My relationships are healthier. The voice I speak to myself with is kinder and more compassionate. I'm making better choices. Everything has changed. And
So just that.
Can
Just,
I
you know,
can I
just
ask
your
you,
whole life.
Whatever that, just
is
that
therapy
stuff.
for everyone?
I would argue that there is some type of therapy out there for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah. There are a lot of different types, and you have to, therapy is a little like dating. There are a lot of people out there who try one therapy session and they're like, oh, therapy's not for me. But that's a little like swearing off sex after one bad date. Just because that first person's not right for you doesn't mean no one will be. And when you do find the right person, it is such a game changer. I would say everything good about my life is a direct result of the therapy that I've done.
Wow. Do you think I need therapy?
So the next question should be...
Well, need is also different than benefit from. I don't think everyone needs therapy to live a good life.
A net positive.
But I think everyone would benefit from it in some way.
For me, I'm like, I should take an hour to meditate and shut my mind off. And maybe that's a form of therapy. I don't know if you would consider it, but that would be more helpful than talking to someone. But that's because I'm perfect. I'm a witch who's never been wrong.
Right. I would tell you go talk to someone because you're better at that. At least start there. It's easier.
Better at talking to someone?
Yeah.
I know.
Than like meditation. Because I'm similar. Like my mom swears by meditation. I'm like, I spend 2 hours a week doing these other things. I can't even spend 10 minutes meditating.
No, I can't. But that's
lower hanging fruit.
Maybe that's a push-up for me.
Yeah, it would
like
be.
meditating, sitting with my own
5
thoughts.
minutes. That's a push-up.
Terrifying.
Absolutely.
Are you able to diagnose someone based on their LinkedIn post history? Just quick gander at it. And you know
what's funny is it is actually either unethical or illegal, whichever, I'm not supposed to do it, to diagnose anyone who I do not have as a patient. So I'm not allowed to diagnose celebrities. I can't go online and say, oh, I'm pretty sure a particular person has narcissistic personality disorder. Exactly. And there's a reason for that. It's because we're so much more complicated than what we put online. You can't really judge someone by their highlight reel.
Once we've been on sets of whatever, commercials and so forth, like the sausage is made. So how do you not see it?
Yeah.
Like somewhere your internal monologue is like, well, I see a few signs of some.
It's true, but I would say what that's really done for me more than anything is that I have a lot of empathy for people. I've just seen enough that people are the way they are for reasons. Right.
The world's more complicated than we just want to
people are doing their best, and so I tend to think, there's more here than meets the eye.
So
How do you think, you've known us for such a short period of time, but do you think we differ than our online personas?
I mean, would you say this moment right now is different than your online persona? Because this will go online.
Yes. I think this is also seen by such a subset of our
this
followings
is like why
on
we're
our personal
doing it.
pages.
Part of why we do it is so that we can be a little bit less of the online characters, versions of ourselves.
I mean, I almost would see it as the online characters are dialed up. It's like caricatures of certain parts.
Yeah. Yes.
It's embellished. We lean in. We bit hard.
Right.
We also choose what we share on those.
Right.
But it feels like also in this space you've gotten more vulnerable and, sweet and kind without.
Ugh.
Oh, please. Is it healthy to rewatch our favorite TV shows over and over again? I have so many friends that do this. Why do people do this?
If it's not healthy, I have some work to do. A lot of people do it. It's very normal. I think that it gives us a sense of predictability and calm, and especially during uncertain times, that's really helpful. I might also throw out a little theory I have, which is that we all are starting to be somewhat ADHD-ish in the sense that we have these dopamine machines in our pocket all the time.
Thanks, TikTok.
And as
Sorry. Thanks, TikTok.
In my day. Yeah, and as a person with ADHD, I've always watched shows in the background when I've done work because it gives me a little more of a boost. And I almost think people are doing that more now because they need something in the background while they scroll. Like just scrolling isn't even enough anymore.
The double screen is crippling for me. Any tips on how to not use your phone as much? Don't feed into this dopamine machine?
I have found that there's a real abstinence approach that can be helpful. Like go camping somewhere where there is no service.
Yeah.
You will probably not miss your phone at all. In fact, I was just camping this weekend for Memorial Day, and I was so unexcited to get back to my phone, and I'm quite addicted to my phone. It feels like we want it when it's right there, but when it's not there, it's a real relief. So just give yourself a chance to be far away from it.
It feels really good. And I've been delegating my phone to my wife to handle. Like just you do the social stuff. I'm just not even going to go on it. And I feel so much better.
You're really good at that, building that separation.
And it feels good. Like I actually feel the more I'm on my phone, the more I'm poisoned. I feel like weirdly mentally poisoned. I don't know how to describe it. I just feel like gross or synthetic in some sort of way. It's very strange.
Yeah.
I understand.
If emotional fitness is like a muscle, then what would the equivalent of emotional leg day be?
Yeah. So when I think about leg day, I think about a workout that's a little less glamorous.
Yep.
You know, you're probably not going to get as many likes on Instagram as you would for pop and
I
biceps.
don't even wear my cutoff on legs day. On leg days. Like
Exactly.
that's true.
Ross always
Exactly,
skips leg
what's the
day
point?
too. So like
Twice a week. I have an A and
so
B workout.
A lot of people neglect leg day for that reason, but strong legs are important for overall health. And if you never work on them, you'll probably topple over at some point.
Yep.
So I would say the equivalent is probably resilience. It's a little less sexy. Like a first date is probably not going to say, "Oh, you're so resilient. That's so hot."
Yeah.
But resilience,
God, that's hot.
I think that's what I
holds
said
you
to my
up.
fiance.
Babe, you're so fucking resilient.
So resilient. I love that about you.
Exactly. But resilience holds you up when life gets heavy, and it's worth investing in.
Can you invest in the how can you train resilience without like dealing with something, I don't know, something bad, right? Like overcoming something or like putting yourself in a negative position to then overcome.
I'd say one of the things you can do is prepare for the inevitable tough things that will come. So one of the emotional push-ups I have for this is make a resource menu. Write out all of the resources you have in your life. Internal resources like I've been through hard things before, or I'm a patient person. And external resources, I have friends and family, or I'm part of this community, or there's this book that I know that is comforting to me. And write them all down. And that way the next time you are going through a hard thing, you already have this list of things that you can lean on.
Is it considered flexing her feelings when Natalie cries on her team meetings with all her employees? Is that flexing
Does it
feelings?
make you a little uncomfortable?
I've only
Makes everyone else uncomfortable. Can tell you
Talon
that.
wrote this question. I don't cry. I've cried a couple times with my coworkers. Yes,
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Except showing weakness.
except being weak. I know. I mean, it can be uncomfortable for people.
I feel like we should be crying so much more than we are.
Oh,
it's
I cry
such
all
an
the time.
incredible release.
You ever watch
of
Bar Rescue?
of
I love
information.
crying.
They come in, they see the brand new bar. I'm sobbing. It's a gorgeous bar.
Bar rescue.
Anyway,
Oh my god.
I actually tell people it can be hard to cry about the things you're really sad about. So if you need to put on a show or movie or song that makes you cry, do it because your
Hans
body
Zimmer,
probably
everyone.
needs it.
Hans Zimmer. Gosh, just listen to those soundtracks. Interstellar, sob
Sobbing.
every night.
Love Interstellar.
I love Interstellar.
How is ADHD a superpower for you?
It does feel like a superpower. It's also a liability, don't get me wrong, but my ADHD has given me a lot of energy and creativity. It helps me switch focus between tasks really quickly and hyper focus on things, especially if I really care about them. There's a lot of overlap between entrepreneurship and ADHD because you have to be in 100 places at once. I've always been able to focus better if I'm doing 10 things at once. But the key for me has been learning how to mitigate it and channel it.
I have ADHD and I'm like, I can't do one thing.
No.
My partner will ask me, could you put this dish in the dishwasher? And then before I do that, I put in a load of laundry.
Yeah.
I make the bed. I clean out my office drawers.
And then you forget the dish existed at
3
all.
hours
and
later,
it's there
it's
on
like,
the
where's
counter.
the dish? It's
Start
still
like 10
there.
projects, never finish any of
I
them, but they've
can't
all been
stop
slightly
starting
done.
Things. I can't stop starting things.
100%.
Yeah. I have to be so efficient that if I'm like on my way to the kitchen to clean something, I will grab 4 other things that are on the way to drop off in some other place.
Yes.
Like
Oh,
I'm just
always-
constantly calibrating what's the optimal way to like get to the other room.
I'm always thinking of the distance between 2 points.
Yeah.
Like in everything I do, every
Like I'll
walk,
stop by
every
the
step
bedroom because I
take.
got to bring like this cup and put it there, and then I've got to take this other thing, and it's like. But the actual goal was just to go simply put this other thing in the dishwasher.
Which makes too much sense.
no, I couldn't just do that.
No.
Because then what if I came back and had to do something else anyway?
It would be miserable.
I have a problem. Okay, what's the single best piece of advice you've ever received?
So the best piece of advice I've ever received has to do with dealing with anxiety and uncertainty. It's been really helpful.
No one has that on this podcast.
No,
None of our listeners do
None of
either.
our listeners, not
They're all
us.
perfect
They're all
witches.
perfect.
Sure.
But
Perfect
Future,
witches too.
I'm not concerned.
no.
Yeah. Well, to tell you about it, I'll tell you about a personal story from many years ago. So in 2011, my mom was in the hospital for a month and things looked really bad. Every night the doctors told us she wasn't going to make it. Every morning she was just barely hanging on. So I was just riddled with anxiety and anticipatory grief. But I had a family friend come keep me company in the hospital one day. His name was Bill. And Bill is an oncologist, so a lot of experience dealing with death and loss. And I was telling him, Bill, I don't know what I'm going to do if my mom dies. You know, I was still young. I still depended on her. I didn't know how I was going to handle it emotionally. I didn't know how I was going to handle it logistically. I was starting to spin. And he said, Emily, the version of you that will handle that terrible thing if and when it happens will be born into existence in that moment. And that version of you will have more life experience, and more context and more ability to handle that thing than you do now. It makes sense that you don't know what you would do if your mom dies because the version of you that will figure it out doesn't exist yet. You have to trust your future self to handle future problems. So that idea, trust your future self to handle future problems.
Come on the pod drop shit like that. Damn.
Oh my gosh.
I've thought about it so many times in my life for the big things, but even the little things, like when I think, what am I going to do if I miss the bus? I will literally think, you know what? Future me is a badass. Yeah. She will figure it out. I'm just going to worry about moving quickly right now. It's been a real game changer.
I love giving future me problems.
I love that. True though. I constantly worry about things that are coming up. Yeah. And it takes up so much mental space. Like imagine just freeing yourself of that.
You're rushing out to meet your suffering. You know, like my mom ended up making it out of the hospital. And I'm so glad I didn't spend so much time suffering future pain that never even came to be.
Yeah.
So there's something about letting yourself off the hook and saying, you know what, future me has my back. She'll figure it out.
Gosh.
That's good.
That's really
That's
good.
Great.
Really fantastic advice.
Tremendous even. Also, I just noticed your necklace says feelings.
Yeah.
I love it. I know
if we can get a close up on that.
I clocked that the second you walked in. I love that.
Close up on that.
I was like, this is going to be a good talk. We need that. Where can people find you, follow you, read your book? Tell us everything.
You can find my book, Flex Your Feelings, Train Your Brain to Develop the 7 Traits of Emotional Fitness, anywhere books are sold. I'm on all the socials at Dr. Emily Anhalt, and my website is dremilyanhalt.com. And you'll find me looking at all of your social media accounts.
Amazing. This was such a fantastic conversation.
The doctor is in.
Dr. Emily, thank you so much for being on the pod.
Thank you for having me and for flexing your feels with me.
Yes.
Yeah, we did do that.
We did.
Yeah, you broke an emotional sweat.
Yeah. I actually literally sweated too.
For sure.
I'm still sweating, but incredible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, wow. I'm back in my original chair.
Our therapist left.
Our therapist is gone.
We've gone through couples therapy, co-founder therapy,
co-host
therapy, co-host therapy. We're sobbing.
We've never been stronger though.
We've never been stronger. We feel amazing.
Our locker room is going to be just emotional. We're going to be back there.
I can't wait to jump in the sauna with you and talk all about this.
Seriously. I mean, it's going to be an extra long sesh.
It really will. I think we have a lot to talk about.
We're just going to sit in silence for a while and just really bask in the feelings.
Totally. One call to action for the Motorheads that I will say is if you enjoyed this conversation, please leave a review, email us.
Yes, please.
Kind of tell us you think this person, this author would be a great guest. We'll reach out to them. We want to have more conversations like this. We usually save our CTAs for the end, but we really do want to hear from you guys.
Like if this is the type of episode you like, hit the like button.
Yeah.
Go to therapy with that like button. Seriously.
Go to therapy with that like button. Do an emotional push up with that subscribe button.
Why not?
Right?
We're out here. We might as well all get better. But seriously, these are the types of conversations that as hosts, like this is why we do it.
And if you didn't like it, like we'll cry probably.
Yeah. But luckily we're resilient, which is so fucking hot.
Which we'll learn so much about our resilience through that feedback. So please give us open and honest feedback. Yeah. Should we get into a little promo demo?
Let's do a little promo demo. Yeah. All right. Promoted, demoted, pulling an emotional hamstring.
It's happened many times before.
So many times. I'm limping.
You're pulling a hammy. Yeah. You're just emotional calf cramp too.
6 to 8 weeks on the injured reserve.
Emotional Charlie horse. What's it called? It happens to the best of us.
All of us.
Right?
No one's immune.
No one's immune. It feels like, but it makes us get better, right? We're saying, it makes us get more resilient. So I'll promote it, right? For the learning of it all.
Right. I think we should all pull an emotional hamstring to realize exactly why flexing your feelings is important in the first place.
Do you want to share like a recent emotional hamstring pull?
So I would say I have susceptible hammies to emotional pulls.
Definitely.
So it'll just be like little things, that kind of compound. It's like I try to get back in the game too early. I post something for myself. Yes. It does horribly. I'm like, I'm horrible. My hamstring's out. I'm limping. I'm like, I wasn't ready. I shouldn't have come back.
I make a choice for myself.
Right.
It bites you in the ass.
It bites me right in the hamstring. I'm so hurt. And I'm like, all right, now I gotta rest until this feels better. That's why I haven't posted in 3 weeks. Only half kidding,
folks.
If
you're wondering where Ross is, he pulled an emotional hammy.
Posted one video called On a Date with the Guy Who Invented Sliced Bread. I thought it was brilliant.
I thought it was great.
I thought it was fucking funny.
For me, it was funny.
It was funny. I went to a restaurant on a date with Becca so I could film this bit.
Yeah, and that's okay.
And it performed like a guy with a torn emotional hamstring.
Perform like a guy who doesn't have 800,000 followers. Let me tell you that. Let me tell you that. It
would have done better on my personal Finsta. It would have. It really would have. It would have. So I'm going to promote it because we learned and we get better.
So much. Promoted.
I'm still rehabbing my hamstring for those wondering.
Okay, promoted or demoted autonomous golf bags.
Okay.
I recently had to carry, and by I mean my partner carried for me.
Yeah.
I love just watching the golf bags roll around with these little, what are they called? Like where
I don't know.
There's a remote clicker. And I said to my partner, I'm like, could I get you one of those? Would you like that? He's like, that is so embarrassing.
It's so embarrassing. It's like the people with roller backpacks.
Exactly.
It's right on par with that. Like you either, like I have a push cart.
Yes.
But it's not the automatic. And my push cart, by the way, is hot pink. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck.
You would be push cart guy.
Yeah, I'm push cart guy, or I'm carry guy, or I'm golf cart guy.
I love golf cart girl.
But there's something about the people walking around with their little remote controls. Like, I'm just like, no, dude.
Remote control guy, not one of my characters.
Not one of my characters. I'm going to demote autonomous golf bags.
I will demote it too, even though it seems so functional.
It's cool in theory. And then you're just like, I don't know. There's a stigma. No golfer is going to do
just
it.
Bad vibes.
It's bad. It's just,
vibes.
it's just not, it's not the move.
Okay. Demoted.
Demoted. Promoted, demoted, paying extra for guac. This is a hot topic.
This is a really hot topic.
Yeah.
I've been paying extra for guac for my whole life.
Right. At this point, I don't know any different. I'm mad about it.
Definitely.
I'm so mad about it.
But what am I going to do? I'm not going to get my Chipotle bowl sans guac.
I actually, back when I was in my advertising days, I was working at an agency. I was the account manager for Rubio's Fresh Mex.
Oh, I love this.
And the entire campaign was built around just, we don't charge for guac. We couldn't do anything except for say, we don't charge for guac.
Come on in. Doors are open.
Doors are open. We don't charge for guac.
Yeah.
How about we do some like really cool like shit here? They're like no, we don't pay for guac. You don't pay for guac.
And that's all anyone really cares about.
It's true.
Did the campaign do so well?
It did well.
Skyrocketed.
Yeah, it did well.
People sprinting to Rubio.
I was like, why do I even need to be creative? That's so dumb.
No.
Don't pay for guac.
Say it like it is.
Value. So yeah, I'm going to demote it, but I do it.
I'm going to demote it.
Because I want it on my Rito.
Promoted or demoted, getting triggered by your parents.
Promoted, do it all the time.
Promoted, love
Simply
it.
live a life of triggered by my parents. Look at my phone,
good at
text
that.
from my mom.
Ross,
what the fuck does she want?
Ross, you are so good at getting triggered by your parents. Let me just say, you're
thank you.
above and beyond incredible at it.
Thank you. Now that hamstring is strong. Yeah. That hamstring is resilient as shit. I never pull that one. I am so just like the ability to feel nothing.
Yes.
Impervious.
Getting triggered by your parents, promoted.
Do you get triggered by your parents?
Kind of, but I've entered into this phase of life of just being so, I think I've just let go. I think I'm also, we're on more like equal playing grounds with our like life where
you're growing up.
We're growing up.
Yeah,
we talk as though we're adults, whereas I used to get so triggered.
Yeah.
And we would fight all the time. High school, oh my gosh, it was terrible.
Yeah.
And now I think we lead with love.
Like I know what they say and what they mean are two different things oftentimes. Mm-hmm. And so now I just like
surrender.
I just don't let it affect me because I'm like, I know what you meant. I don't know why you said it like that.
That
like,
hurt a little bit.
That's just how you roll. And like, I'm unaffected.
Exactly.
And Becca will be like, did she? I'm like, don't even worry about it.
Let's just let it
fine.
lie.
Yeah. Like it doesn't matter.
Let it just
like
sit there.
They'll forget they even said that in like 2 minutes.
And we'll remember for the next year.
Yeah. And I'll hold it tightly.
That's okay.
Dear Diary.
That's okay.
All right. Let's do a little Dear Demoted. This one was submitted by Isaac.
Thanks,
Isaac. Clever as shit. Okay. Hello. I've been working in finance and fintech sales for the last 15 years. I'm currently working at a very large company with the East Coast / New York territory, i.e. the best territory in the world. Yes, the coasts, for those out there, are the best territories because they tend to be like tech companies and companies that spend money and buy things.
Definitely.
So usually the best territory. I recognize some of my success, and a very large recent deal is to do with territory. Since this deal, other AEs on my team have been working against me, trying to paint me as a negative influence on the team and generally a bad person. I think they're doing this as they want me out of my territory. I've lived a life of debauchery for sure, but have always aimed to have strong work relationships and to be the good guy to have around. Any advice on how to navigate this with my teammates and boss without looking weak? This is so written by a salesperson. Like, I've lived a life of debauchery for sure.
This, Isaac, you are so emotionally intelligent and self-aware.
This guy has been just doing emotional push-ups.
Why is looking weak's the worst possible outcome?
How do I do this without looking like a bitch?
I don't want them to lose respect for me, but I definitely want them to like me.
Like, I'm not a pussy.
Like, okay.
But like, I got to do something.
Feels like maybe your team's on to something here a little bit.
I've lived a life of debauchery for sure. But I've grown up. Like, I'm not really lines in the office anymore.
I'm not trying to like make people upset, but I'm definitely not trying to look weak.
You got to kill them with kindness.
You do.
You know, at the end of the day, if you're closing business, which it sounds like you are, like the numbers speak for themselves. All you can do is be the greatest person you can be.
We have to get Dr. Emily back here to give some advice. My advice, if I was a doctor, would be look in the mirror in your office, take off your Bass Pro Shop snapback, put it on the counter, look at yourself, just dead in the eye, and just realize who you are, Isaac.
Am I weak?
Am I weak?
Am I strong?
Am I strong?
Am I debaucherous?
What are you?
What are you?
And what does your team want?
Yeah.
And put that first.
Yeah. I mean, like the best / worst people in the world are the people that are just like good at what they do and good people.
And you want to be that.
And you want to be that.
Yeah.
And if you're closing business, even if it's the best territory, like who cares? That's how it works.
Also, territories are randomly assigned. This is
Kill them with kindness, baby.
Kill them with kindness.
Yeah. And you'll be fine. And you won't look weak. If anything, you'll look strong and unaffected.
You look so strong.
I just want to make sure you were going to look so fucking strong. You're going to wear a cutoff to work.
You are.
Your emotional biceps are going to be bulging, veins, just crazy veins.
Isaac, keep us updated.
Keep us updated. Kill them with kindness. Keep closing business.
You're not weak. We know you're not weak.
You're not weak, dude.
We know you aren't.
You're so not weak.
So strong, Isaac.
We love a strong Motorhead.
I'm going to read a quick Spotify comment. This one's actually from Nick from T-Boy. I guess he left us a Spotify comment on our last episode. Nick said, this was so much fun to listen to. I just listened again and I was in the show. Thanks so much for hosting us, Nat and Ross. You guys are legendary pros, making such satisfying and rewarding and a blast to be a part of. So pumped to catch the next Demoted episode too. If there's one guy who's willing to give it away, it's Nick Martell.
Nick is the dude.
He is
This is what Isaac needs to be.
Man. Yes. Isaac, listen to our T-Boy app. Listen to the speech that Nick gave us at the end. He's like, you guys, I just need to take a second here. You're doing so well.
Both those bros.
Ross and I both crying. Both those bros freaking rock.
Yeah.
Those are two guys who are so kind, so emotionally intelligent.
So good at what they
smart,
do. It's
so
like, why are you great
do.
and good people?
No.
You're pissing me off right now.
Those people who enter the room and you're like, dang it. Like every other guy's like, shoot, I wish I could be like them.
They could pull anyone, anything, anywhere. And they're just they're just so chill.
They're so chill.
God, they're great. All right. I'm going to read one more. And this one's from Coach Ray. It says, I need a quarterly fix of this foursome.
Okay. On it. On it.
Oh, this is part of the T-Boy.
This is part of the T-Boy app.
I was like, Becca, Annie?
Listen to our The Best One Yet episode if you haven't already.
One official shout out from Anonymous. This is a shout out for my husband, Nicholas. We are huge Demoted fans, although I'm an OG Motorhead. At one point, he drove for work a lot more than usual, so he listened to 4 of your shows back to back during the drive and totally beat me in listening to your podcast. He's crushing it at work as a first-time manager and just survived a bad hire that he inherited / performanced out. We always quote your hilarious lines, such as the I'm a shrimpy boy line, which I haven't said in a while, but I'm glad you remember that. I hope your pod gets tons of sponsors and will thrive for decades to come. I'm sure it will. You are truly a gem and have impacted so many lives for the better. For example, you definitely converted me to follow T-Boy. It was so memorable how they explained tariffs. Also, shout out to Annie and Becca. Y'all are my twins.
Thank you so much for writing this. We love a husband-wife duo listening to us. Yep. I just think a lot of our fan base is husband-wives.
We love that.
Which we love. A lot of the time, it's like a saleswoman who's married and converts her husband to listening. And anyway.
We can't ask for more than that. We need more Motorheads around the world.
Yes.
Gets us fired up.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Smash that subscribe button, that like button. Book your next therapy appointment and tune in next week on Demoted.
Demoted.